So, today I want to do something a little bit different, because I always like doing something a little bit different on this channel. And I want to have a talk about comics. I love comics. I love the fact that what Marvel are doing with their films, absolutely amazing. I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I want to talk about DC. Many of their characters are brilliant. They've done some really good stories over the years. The New 52 didn't work because there was no planning. I've done videos about that before. But today I want to discuss I suppose the best way to call it would be the Western comic book industry versus pretty much the Japanese comic book industry. Now, there are differences, but there are lots of stuff that, quite frankly, the Western comic book industry can learn from. Now, where to start? The first thing is they should be able to write stories that do not define the age of their readership. I may have come across that a bit wrong, but basically you want to look at a good example from the Japanese industry's perspective. Naruto. Loads of people read Naruto. I still read Naruto. I remember when it started back in... Well, I remember first coming across it back in 1999. And again, I've just sort of continued reading it. Again, One Piece, still hugely popular with a vast age range. And the problem with the Western industry is that they go, right, this comic, mature audience. You know what? If you want to write a comic for mature audience, that's great. That's fine. But then you get the problem with the... You've only got to look at the New 52 and what the audience they were aiming at. It wasn't a wide range. They were aiming it at a younger audience. Yet, as time and time again has been brought to them, the people who are reading the comics are a lot older. They are the older end of the team demographics, you know, people in the 20s and 30s who are still reading the same characters they grew up with. But you've now got a situation where the kids aren't getting into the comics because they are writing for what they think the kids want, not what the audience wants, who are actually reading the comics. And again, in the sort of Japanese audience, yes, again, there are comics that are aimed at the our targeted age range, but a lot of the comics, again, you want to look at the Shonen. What you've got: Shonen Jump, Shonen Weekly. I can't remember the rest of the names, but there are so many, you know, different manga out there that are not stuck at aiming for a young audience. They go for everything. You've only got to look at Attack on Titan. While Attack on Titan does have quite mature themes, arguably there are a lot of lower end readers, you know, sort of the younger end readers, who would read it purely for the action. So that's certainly one thing I wish they would sort of pick on. The other thing I want to pick up on is the release time schedule. Now, a lot of manga in Japan, you either get a weekly release date where you literally get one chapter a week printed in a magazine, but you don't just get that one chapter. You get several other stories in that one book. So my question to the Western industry is, why are you not packaging some of these stories together? You know, why not put Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman together in one comic and have that released monthly? Because that would be a quite good value for money. Not only that, you are potentially bringing in readers who might buy specifically for Batman, might end up reading the Superman and the Wonder Woman comic at the same time and going, you know what, I want to continue reading these as well. And then, again, learning from, again, the Japanese industry compared to the Western industry is when they brought out in collections. Now, if you wanted to read, say you wanted to read Superman from, say, somebody's run, and you wanted to read issue 27 to 38, you cannot, unless you go out and buy those individual volumes, or you can now buy those volumes online. But in Japan, whenever, I think it's, must be 6 or 7 of the chapters are out, they then get put into volumes. You can then buy these volumes. You can then have huge, massive libraries. Again, you've only got to look at, I think if you just type into Google shelf space for One Piece, and you will literally see a bookshelf full of how many One Piece volumes there are. And yet, they don't do that. You can only buy, if the story was popular, it'll be put into a run. So, I'm just trying to think now, what's a good example? Nah, I'll just reach out. Yeah. Like this. This is the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think this was when they were sort of relaunched. I don't know exactly if there was a volume 2. But I don't think there was. But again, there is no mass library. You can only potentially read maybe volumes 1 to 10. It'll miss maybe a couple volumes, and then you get 18 to 19 and so on and so forth. There's no, you can't pick up a comic and start reading it from beginning to end. And I understand that is a problem, because again, there are such huge back catalogues, and again, that is part of the problem, which again, the New 52 was meant to solve, but it didn't. It only created, if anything, more problems and re-established the status quo within comic books, and now you can very much argue nothing's changed, even though they said it would. But you know, nothing changed in comic books. But that's another discussion for another time, I think. But yeah, again, there is quite a lot, I think, that the Western sort of books could learn. I do think there are a number of companies that do it quite well. Vertigo does it quite well. Dark Horse do it quite well. Depends on the series sometimes, like Star Wars Legacy. I have pretty much all volumes of Star Wars Legacy. Again, highly recommend Star Wars Legacy. Again, I feel like I'm just going to go off and do a random rant now into like something completely different, again to do with comic books, so I'm going to stop it here and probably continue in another video.